Welcome to my review for Jason 10, although really it should have been called Jason Goes to Space. This is a campy, tongue-in-cheek horror film, so why not just give it a campy title? Now, I must say that out of all the films in this series, this is the one I was looking forward to reviewing the least. Not because it's my least favourite of the bunch, I can think of at least 3 others that I would put below this in a ranking. I just think I've overwatched Jason 10 over the years. I could do with cryogenically freezing my copy of this movie for 450 years, maybe. And then after that period of time, maybe it'll start to feel fresh again. Plus, the way that I watched this the other night with my analytical brain switched on and with a pen and paper down by my side is absolutely not the way to watch this movie, no. The way to watch Jason 10 is drunk as a skunk, 1 a.m. in the morning, beer and pizza on your lap, or maybe just with friends or as part of some kind of watch party on YouTube. So basically pissed as a fart or with other people, not on your own. So this was probably my least favourite watch of the movie that I've ever had. The story is a little bit confusing in the beginning because it bears no correlation to the events at the end of part 9. Now I think Freddy vs. Jason might be to blame for this because at the start of that film, Jason is brought back up from hell. So I think chronologically, maybe that movie was meant to come before Jason 10. But you can't blame all the story inconsistencies on Freddy vs. Jason because the same problem happened at the beginning of part 9 because Jason was back in Crystal Lake when we last saw him dead in New York at the end of number 8. So I guess at this stage of the series, 8, 9, 10, it really was a case of anything goes. So Jason is embroiled in a battle with some hottie at the start of this. They both get cryogenically frozen and left there for centuries until some explorers from the future come down from Earth 2, because apparently Earth 1 had to be abandoned at some point due to pollution reasons. They take the 2 frozen bodies up to their spaceship, these guys, and unfreeze them because they don't know how dangerous Jason is, and voila! We have a Friday the 13th film in space. And the last thing I want to say before we get into it is that this film was directed by James Isaac, who sadly died in 2012 at the age of 51. I did not know that until just today when I was randomly poking around on the internet. So I'd like to dedicate my review today to James, and all I've got to say to you, James, is that I will try not to trash your movie too much. So let's move swiftly into the positives now that I've convinced myself that James Isaacs is watching this. I've only got 2 though, sadly. One of them is a big positive though, which is the kills. I mean, if gore is your thing, you will at least get to enjoy something about this film while the rest of it is falling apart at the seams, which it does. The kills in this go on from basically the first minute to the last. There must be at least 20 of them. There's a famous kill quite early on where Jason grabs this scientist's head, freezes it, and then smashes it against the side. I didn't realise until quite recently, actually, that the X-Files did this first, around about 93. They did pretty much the exact same kill. And I guess in Demolition Man, Wesley Snipes sort of dies in a similar way. But out of those 3 kills, I'll say the Jason one is the goriest and the best. I do wish, though, that they kept that scientist character alive for longer in the film. I think her name is Adrienne. And she comes across as a very mature presence in the few scenes that she's in. I think she's meant to be in her late 20s, but most of the rest of the cast are just clowns, in all honesty. I think keeping Adrienne alive for a lot longer could have really improved this film. I'll tell you who I would have killed instead. There's a girl who starts out in the lab, and then Adrienne kicks her out because she's getting too flirty with a boyfriend. Nice looking girl, very nice looking girl, but very flaky. I would have had her suffer the head smash instead, and I would have kept Adrienne alive. There's also a good kill with a giant corkscrew type thing. In fact, that whole section when Jason goes after all the soldiers on the spaceship is probably the only time in the film where there's some really good tension, and it's only red shirts who are dying. Although that whole scene so reminds me of a game of Kazar or Laser Quest. It wouldn't surprise me if they'd filmed that in a Laser Quest centre and just said to the manager, look, we're filming a horror film on a spaceship and we don't have much money. Can we use your area of business? But yeah, it's a good scene, to be fair. There's some really good kills in there. My other big positive for the movie is that there's some good use of VR. There's a scene late on where Jason is walking down a corridor and his surroundings change to a depiction of Crystal Lake from back in the 20th century. And by this point of the story, it's a sight for sore eyes. I'm desperate to see Crystal Lake again. So I really like the imagery in this scene. And when the two girls stand up and start giving all that spiel about premarital sex and all that, it's really funny. I do like the scene. And early on in the film, there's another VR segment where these two soldiers are playing some sort of game on a headset, and Jason gets to kill them twice, one in the game and once for real as well. So it's sort of like a double set of kills. It's really cool. But that's all I've got for positives, really, though, on the whole. The kills and some few good uses of VR. Now for my negatives, and let's talk about the lack of atmosphere in this film, both outside the ship and inside it. If I said the words horror film on a spaceship, do you know what the first thing that would come to my mind? It wouldn't be Jason 10, I'll tell you that much. It would be Alien, and probably 2 seconds later, I would think of Event Horizon. But let's stick with Alien. When I think of the incredible atmosphere in that film compared to Jason 10, it just makes me sad. I get that Ridley Scott had a much bigger budget, but it's not about money. It does not cost money to film Sigourney Weaver going down a corridor, having all those flashing shadows, and just the most incredible tension. Earlier on in that film, another example, the Brett character. How long do we spend following this guy as he's walking to his doom, and you're so on the edge of your seat watching this? There's nothing like that in Jason 10. There's no moments where characters are just slinking around in darkened rooms or corridors. Everything's too brightly lit. There are a few moments in the Laser Quest type scene where we follow some of the soldiers creeping around for a few seconds, but that's not saying much. Instead of taking inspiration from one of the best science fiction films of all time, Alien, Jason 10 seems to take inspiration from one of its really bad sequels, Alien Resurrection. There's so many similarities between Alien Resurrection and Jason 10. So in the aforementioned Alien film, they had to have Sigourney Weaver back, apparently. So they came up with this idea of bringing her back as a clone, but it just wasn't the same. She was really lifeless in that film. Now, I get that Rowan, played by Lexa Doig in this movie, our final girl, is not a clone, but they might as well have not brought her back, because in the second half of this film, when Jason's running around killing everybody, Rowan just seems to fuse into the other characters. She's not in the foreground anymore. She's not the focus point. She might as well just not be there. And other similarities as well with Alien Resurrection. So the alien in that film gets an upgrade about 10 minutes from the end. It turns into this like big white creature thing, which is not particularly impressive. Jason gets an upgrade in Jason 10. And if you think about the way that that creature dies at the end of Alien Resurrection, how all its bits come out when it gets sucked through the hull, that happens to a character in Jason 10. And then there's the fact that all the soldiers get killed in one fell swoop in Alien Resurrection. That happens in Jason 10. The Adrian character who gets her head frozen and smashed in Jason 10. I'm pretty sure that there's a character who gets really badly frozen in Alien Resurrection as well. There's so many similarities. It's like Jason 10 just decided to be a really low budget version of the worst Alien film. There's so many bad characters in Jason 10 as well. They are so cardboard. You know, you've got the wimpy guy who it's sort of implied that he's sleeping with the robot. I don't even want to think about it. There's a pilot, he has a cowboy hat on, therefore he has character. I don't think so. There's this slutty girl who is barely a step above Melissa from Friday Part 7. Her line delivery throughout the film is so cheesy, and that gets me thinking of the professor in this. I mean, he's just the world's biggest plonker, really bad character. Rowan is not a bad character. She should be in the foreground so that I don't have to look at all these other characters so much, but she doesn't. She just blends in with them past the halfway point of this film. Like I said before, she might as well not be there. Let's talk briefly about the music. I get the fact that this film was always going to sound different to previous Friday films because we're now in space. But I can't think of a single musical cue or track in this film which is worth anything. And the song which plays on the end credits is awful. It's one of the worst songs I think I've ever heard play over credits. It sounds like a bunch of musicians who've turned up an hour early to a concert, and before they go on stage, they just want to spend a bit of time playing all the instruments in any old random order just to make sure that it's all working okay. That's what it sounds like. It's really dreadful. So on the whole, this film is a mixed bag, and I think that's being kind. I used to think of this as a really good Friday film, actually. That's a lot of fun. But I'm sort of changing my opinion now. I sort of think that it's borderline poor. It really is. I really need to not watch this one for quite a long time now, I think. And one more question I want to ask. How does Jason get out of the straitjacket at the start of this film? You know what? Let's get to the bag of terror. So, a deuce of bloody axes today, 2 out of 5. Before I did this rewatch, I was thinking along the lines of 2.5, maybe even 3, but I don't know. I can't bring it upon myself to give this an average score of 2.5. I think 2 out of 5 is about right. It's sort of a fun film to watch when you're drunk, but it's not worth much as a horror film, if you're being really honest. So I will be back very soon with my review for the Friday the 13th remake. I don't need to do Freddy vs. Jason because I've already done it when I did my Nightmare on Elm Street review series. I've already put that Freddy vs. Jason review into my Friday the 13th playlist, so it is there. So we're going to be skipping straight past that one to the remake, and that's the last one. After that, I will be finally done with my Friday the 13th review series. So until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.